Now we have on the stage here at the forum Tony Parsons, the Magistrate of Victoria's Drug Court, and Jack Nagle, who's Clinical Manager of the Dayhab Rehabilitation Clinic in Upper Ferntree Gully and a former user himself. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in. Tony Parsons is the Magistrate of the Drug Court. How does what we're seeing here differ from any other drug problem we've had?
Well, there are a number of characteristics of this ice epidemic that are quite unique. Firstly...
Sorry, so the epidemic.
Well, I'm seeing it as an epidemic because it really, to the courts, it wasn't a visible problem until about 6-7 years ago, and now it is occupying an enormous part of the work of our criminal courts across the state. So that's sudden, that's epidemic proportions from my perspective.
And how does it differ?
Well, the addiction seems to develop very, very quickly. And not everybody gets addicted. It's the vast majority of people who play around with this substance will stop using it. For those that do get addicted, it happens quickly. Secondly, there seems to be amongst the profile of criminal offending relating to this drug, there seems to be a dimension of violence which is much greater for this drug than other drugs such as heroin, for instance. Thirdly, unlike other drugs like heroin, this drug actually causes brain damage. It actually damages the structure of the brain, and brains can cure, but it takes a very, very long time. So when people use this drug regularly, there are measurable changes in brain structure, and that is very concerning. And fourthly, because it is a relatively recent problem, we've been developing responses, therapeutic responses to heroin and alcohol for decades. I think the therapeutic community really is still struggling to come up with some effective therapeutic responses. Lots of things are being tried and there's lots of work being done, but we're not there yet.
So what do we do now? What do we do to try and address those 4 points that you've raised?
Well, we certainly need to encourage research into treatment. We know that short-term detoxifications, while they might work for alcohol and heroin, don't work for ice. People go into short-term detoxes and they sleep for the first 5 days because they probably haven't slept for 3 weeks when they come in. So we need to work very hard around that research so we can get that therapeutic response. We also need to address supply.
Okay, Jack Nagle's with us, Clinical Manager, Dayhab Rehabilitation Centre, a former addict himself. How long were you using?
I used several different drugs, but at the end it was ice, and that was probably for a year, and it really brought me to my knees the quickest, I think, out of all the different drugs that I used.
What did it do?
Well, I think the nature of it is, and the extreme addictiveness of it, is that it brought me up so high, and the crash was so quick that the things that I was doing to get it to stay on that high really were, causing great amounts of pain in my life, and I think that's why it brought me, to my knees the quickest, because of the consequences involved.
Well, what sort of things were you doing?
Well, really, I started off and I come from a really good family. I was good at sport and things like that, but I just crossed every moral boundary that I had, really because the getting and using of ice just become the most important thing in my life. So, I started engaging in activities that I normally wouldn't.
What, criminal activities?
Yeah, and nothing, I guess, like major, if you could say that. But look, I did, I did do, different criminal activities to get the drug, and really by the end of it, and when I actually came off the drug and I didn't have the numbing agent in my body anymore, I had to bear with what I'd done, and I couldn't deal with that anymore. So the answer to me was to use ice again.
So how long did it take you to get off it?
I was having a discussion with someone before I came up here, and really it was my mother, and really it would have been the hardest thing for her, but she did a thing that we call detaching with love, and really set some boundaries in place with me, and said, look, these are the rules, and you can't do this in my house anymore, and if you are, then you're going to have to leave, and as a result, I left, and I was kind of sleeping, couch surfing and sleeping rough, and it pushed me into a treatment centre, and I didn't really want to stop at the start, and I saw some people doing, like some different things, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I stuck with it, and I'm, I just feel incredibly lucky, because now I guess what I'm seeing at the treatment centre is the, psychological and emotional hold that methamphetamine had over me and other people is just, unbearable and really hard to
Well, you said you've used other drugs. Was it tougher than the other drugs to get off?
Look, I don't think to actually, so for me and for most people I talk to at our treatment centre out at Dayhab, stopping actually isn't the problem. It's staying stopped, as Tony was saying before. And I could stop because I could just crash and sleep and things like that. But as soon as I woke up, it's a thing that we call obsession and compulsion. That was just in the forefront of my mind, and the extreme addictiveness of methamphetamine just had me straight back there at once.